Alright, so now that the season's officially over, I'm going to grade every player that played meaningful plays for this team, or meaningful snaps, I should say. So let me know in the comments if you guys agree with these grades or not. You can give me your own in the comments, and I'll start from the top. We'll go from, ownership. Well, not ownership, but I know John Mara, you get an F. I don't care. We'll start with Gettleman. We'll end with Aldrick Rosas. We'll try to do everybody here, and I'll try to do it, somewhat quickly. I don't want this to be a half-hour video. So I started with Pat Shurmur for some reason. I gave Pat Shurmur a C+. I'm sure some of you would give him an F, but I'm trying to be fair with all these grades here. You guys know I believe Shurmur was never given an actual roster where he could have succeeded or won with this roster. Shurmur himself doesn't get a high grade because he did make mistakes with challenges and play calling sometimes and managing the clock with his timeouts and stuff like that. So therefore, I give him a C+. We'll see if he's back next year. I would say probably not, but we'll see. Dave Gettleman gets a C- for me. Only reason I didn't go lower is because Daniel Jones, plain and simple. We always talk about his draft classes, and every time a Gettleman supporter has a conversation with me or an argument with me, it's always like, oh, he's a great drafter, but they never talk about his free agent signings and stuff like that. You don't want to get into that, obviously, but he did make good draft picks this year. I'll give him that. I think Darius Slayton's a great find. Of course, Daniel Jones, when none of us really wanted him, was a great pick. The thing, though, the 2018 class kind of concerns me because not many guys from that class really took the next step. We did not see it from Will Hernandez. Saquon Barkley, I attribute that to the injury, I guess. So, he'll be back to normal next year, hopefully. So, Will Hernandez kind of stayed the same. Lorenzo Carter was very, he was missing in the first half of the year and got better at the end of the second half of the year. I'll give him that for sure. Trying to think who else we got that year. B.J. Hill definitely declined. The fourth round pick, what's the guy, the quarterback we got from Richmond, Laletta, he's off the team now. RJ McIntosh didn't really play much this year. He had a couple sacks, I feel like, but still nothing major. So his draft class from 2018 definitely took a small step back, which is definitely not encouraging. But 2019 so far looks like a good class. Of course, you have Jones, and then you have guys like Conley and Slayton. Why can't I think about who we drafted right now? I probably should have wrote this down. But yeah, it's a good class regardless. Hopefully these guys come out and, next year, O'Shane Ximines is a guy I forgot about as well. DeAndre Baker, Dexter Lawrence. Lawrence was a guy we talked a lot about in the first half, but he kind of went missing. You see him on run stops here and there, but, Lawrence is the player I expected him to be. I don't think he's going to be a huge impact player, but he's a good player to have on a good defense. It's just the Giants aren't a good defense, so it is what it is. So, yeah, hopefully his 2019 class improves next year, but overall, I'm not a big fan of what he's done, obviously. You guys know that. I think the Marcus Golden signing was very good, but he's also employed guys on this team that had awful years. Of course, I made that the lowlights of Alec Ogletree and Antoine Bethea. Those are guys that Gettleman traded for and signed one of them, so, yeah. Offensive line was an issue as well. I know Jerry Reese was not good with the offensive line, but Gettleman's offensive line is not much better. Nate Solder and John Halapio have been pretty terrible this year, so I have to, include that as well. James Bettcher, defensive coordinator, I give him a D+. I could have went lower, obviously. I think there were some moments, especially in this game against the Eagles, final game of the year, where I like some of the stuff he did. He sent some blitzes at key times that actually worked, but there were too many times this year where the people on defense didn't know what was going on. I think back to that game against Philadelphia 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, in Philly in overtime, where nobody knew who they were guarding on the final play, the touchdown to Ertz. So that was the final straw with me and James Bettcher, so of course he gets a D+. Mike Shula, I don't know what this guy does, honestly. He's not calling the plays. I guess he can get a decent grade because Daniel Jones developed into a great passer this year, so I guess a B or something. I have no idea, but we'll go with that for him. On to the quarterback position, Daniel Jones, A- for me. Only reason it's not an A+, of course, is the turnovers. I talked about it in my reaction video before. I think it was 17 fumbles, 11 lost fumbles. That deserves some points off your grade. I'm not a teacher, but I would give you some points off your grade for that. So, I give him an A-. I think it's a great year for him overall. Much better than I expected, obviously. He has way more upside than I thought he would, so I'm very happy about him for the future. Eli Manning, his play for the season, I'll give him a C+. I thought he had some moments that were great and some that looked like the declining version of Eli. That first half against the Eagles, he looked like the 2011 version of himself. He had some moments in the Dolphins game where he made some magnificent throws. That one the one that always comes to mind is that play action to Sterling Shepard that went out at the 1 yard line. That was like a bullet of a pass by Eli, but he also had moments where he just made some really bad decisions and that kind of stuff. But for his career, because I'm assuming this is his last game as a Giant, I'll give Eli Manning an A. I mean, he gave me some great memories as a sports fan. I mean, I definitely talked about Eli Manning and how he's one of my favorite players growing up and how he's given me some memories I'll never forget as a sports fan, so I thank him for that once again. So I'll give him an A for his career. Alex Tania, but I don't know. I mean, I think the guy came in and took a couple of kneels, I think in Eli's final home game against the Dolphins, so yeah, I mean, the Giants apparently love Alex Tania in the film room, so I guess he did something good, but that's behind the scenes and stuff I don't know about. Saquon Barkley, I think he missed 4 games or something. I think it was 4 games around there. Came back, had some rough games after the injury. I don't really blame him. I mean, his offensive line wasn't that great. The play calling wasn't too creative for him, obviously. So I'll give Saquon an A-. He found a way to squeak out 1,000 yards this year, apparently on the ground, which is great news. If he's healthy next year, he should be fine. So hopefully he's healthy next year. Wayne Gallman was an interesting case because once Javorius Allen came over here and got acclimated with the playbook, it seemed like they just forgot about Wayne Gallman. We know Gallman's a Jerry Reese guy, so I would highly doubt he's back here next year, so I give Wayne Gallman a C. I guess he had some decent moments. He was good in that game against Washington when he started for Saquon. Who'd they play after that? He got hurt, I think. I don't know if it was that game or I think he got hurt early in the next game, which was the Vikings game. So we really didn't see too much of Gallman as a starter, unfortunately, so I'll give him a C. Javorius Allen, I give a B when he's been in there. I mean, he hasn't played much, but when he's been in there, I feel like he's been pretty effective. He had a nice run against the Dolphins at the end of the game a few weeks ago, so I'll give him a B. We'll see if he's back next year. Wide receivers, Golden Tate, I'll give him a B. Only reason it's not higher is because he got suspended the first 4 games and kind of put us in the rough spot in some situations. So I mean, that's definitely not a good thing. Same thing with Sterling Shepard. I give him a B as well. I mean, he's definitely made some plays just like Golden Tate. He had some very bright moments this year, but the injuries definitely took some points off for him. It's not his fault. I know he got a couple concussions and stuff like that, so I feel bad for the guy, but hopefully he gives us a full 16 games next year. But when he's out there, he's great. His run blocking is tremendous as well. You have to give him credit for that. Darius Slayton, I would give an A. I mean, he's been great this year. He had maybe a couple drops this year that were pretty tough on third down situations and stuff like that, but for the most part, this guy had a bunch of touchdowns this year, 700 yards or something like that. So I mean, that's great for a 5th, 6th round rookie, and way above my expectations for him. Cody Latimer, I give a B. When he's out there, he does enough. I mean, he makes plays. He makes some plays on deep balls and stuff like that sometimes. I think he was on a 1-year deal, so we'll see if he's back next year as well. Cody Core, I'll give a B. He didn't do much as a receiver, but did a lot of good things as a gunner. I mean, on Riley Dixon's punts, he was there to down the ball in some, key spots, sometimes on the 1-yard line and stuff like that, so I'll give him a B for special teams. For the tight end position, Evan Engram, I'll give him a B. I mean, when he was out there, he was effective. I mean, the first few games of the year, he was on pace to have a very nice year. Of course, injury slowed him down. I think he got hurt in the Dallas game in like week 9, I think it was, and then we didn't see him the rest of the year, I believe, so sucks for him. That's really been the story of Engram's career so far. It's interesting to see what happens with him in the offseason. Maybe I'll make a separate video about him. Red Ellison, I'll give a C. He's Red Ellison. He's an average player, average blocker. Made some nice receptions. He had a nice reception against the Cardinals, I think, for a long touchdown. So he had some moments. I think he missed the final month of the year as well. And Caden Smith, I'll give an A. I mean, we only saw Caden Smith for like 4 or 5 games, but when he's been out there, he's been great as a blocker, as a receiver, almost had 100 yards in the final game of the year. So I'll definitely give Caden Smith an A for this year. Offensive line, Nate Solder, a C-. I mean, I've said it before, I hope he's playing injured this year because he had a rough year, but we're paying this guy a lot of money. I could have went lower on the grade, but I'm just hoping that the guy has some sort of injury he's playing through because he had a pretty bad year. Will Hernandez, a B-. I mean, he definitely, I think, didn't improve much from his rookie year, which sucks. That's why the grade's not higher, but at the same time, he's always there. He's durable. He plays all 16 games. Wish he took a step forward this year. I was excited for him, but at the same time, he wasn't terrible either, so we'll give him a B-. John Jalapio, a C-. He's had a rough year. I mean, this game obviously coming off, the bad snap to Daniel Jones and stuff. I mean, he just did not have a great year, honestly. Kevin Zeitler, I'll give an A. I think this was a good move by Gettleman once again. I mean, a good trade for him. And, Zeitler was one of the best guards in the league, and that's what we were told when he came over here, and that's what I saw watching him every game this year. So, I'm sure he had some moments where he screwed up, but for the most part, I never really found myself blaming Kevin Zeitler for anything bad happening. Mike Remmers, I'll give a B because I didn't expect much from Remmers at all. I mean, he did have a couple injuries flare up here and there, but he does have some back issues, so it makes sense. But when he was in there, he was solid, so I'll definitely give him a B. And Nick Gates, I'll give a B minus. I mean, I think, some of us overrate Nick Gates because we're used to poor offensive line play, but honestly, I went back and watched basically all of Nick Gates' snaps because I was putting together a highlight film for him. He had some plays where he was getting driven back into the quarterback on pass rushing, but his run blocking is really good. I think his pass blocking is iffy, so I'll give him a B minus for that. And now we'll get on to the defense. So Leonard Williams, an A minus for me. I mean, we traded for him, middle of the season, and since we got him, the run defense was a lot better. So I'll give him an A minus. We'll see what he's back for next year. I'm sure if Gettleman's still the GM, they'll re-sign him because I'm sure he doesn't want to trade a high third-round pick and let the guy walk. So we'll see what kind of contract he has. Dalvin Tomlinson, I'll give an A. He was definitely better once Leonard Williams came over and more effective, but at the same time, Dalvin Tomlinson, another guy who's durable. He shows up every Sunday, does his thing, a lot of good run stops, and you don't hear much out of him, but he just definitely does his job. Dexter Lawrence, I give a B. He was, I feel like better in the first half of the year. Might have hit a rookie wall, but he was always there to stop the run and push the offensive line back, so I'll give him some credit there. BJ Hill, give a C minus because his production definitely went down. He can't help that, obviously. I mean, in some cases, his playing time went down as well because they traded for Leonard Williams and took a lot of his snaps away, but even the first half of the year before Williams was here, he was ineffective. So, I mean, I don't know what happened with BJ Hill. Maybe he was injured. We'll find out. I don't know. And RJ McIntosh, I give a C. We don't see him play much. He had a couple of bright moments this year. I think he had a sack in the Vikings game. He had a sack a couple games ago, I think, as well. So sometimes he shows up and make a play, so I'll give him a C on the season. On to outside linebacker, Marcus Golden, I give an A+. I think he's the only A+ in here. No, maybe someone else later. Now I just remembered. But yeah, A+ for him. He's on a one-year deal. He came back because of James Bettcher, and he definitely thrived in this defense once again like he did in 2015. Double-digit sack year. He made some key run stops as well in certain situations. So he was great this year. We'll see if he's back next year. I don't think it's a guarantee he's back. He might be a little too costly for my liking. I'm not really completely bought in he'll be this great in the future. I think he's like 29 or 28 years old. I don't know how fresh he'll be next year, but we'll see about that. We'll see what the Giants do in the offseason with Marcus Golden. Lorenzo Carter, a B- for me. I mean, he was definitely more of a C- in the first half of the year, but I've noticed more, I think ever since the Patriots game, which was probably like week 6, I think it was. So, I say majority of the year he's shown up in a lot of games, but I think since that game, Lorenzo Carter has been getting a lot better. But the first month of the year, he was invisible. So, I mean, I'm happy to see him making plays once again down the stretch. O'Shane Ximines, a B+ for me, a guy that I loved in college. I was very happy the Giants drafted him. He made some very nice plays for them this year. I think he had 5-6 sacks, somewhere around there. So a nice season for him as a third-round rookie. So, as I said when we drafted him, I think one day he can be an 8 to 12 sack guy per year once he's fully developed, and I still believe that. I mean, he had like 4 or 5 this year, so hopefully he keeps trending in the right direction. Kareem Martin, I mean, I've talked about Kareem Martin before. I mean, we chose him over Devon Kennard, and Kennard's not a great player by any means, but he's definitely better than Kareem Martin. So, I mean, I give Martin a C-. He wasn't here most of the year. He was on IR. I think he came back in like week 15, 16, and barely played, so I'll give him a C-, and I guess I'm generous with that one and not giving him a lower grade. This guy I won't be generous for. Inside linebackers, Alec Ogletree gets a D- from me. This was another trade by Gettleman that I was not a fan of, and came over here and has not been good whatsoever. Some fans were fooled because he had 5 interceptions last year, and are like, oh, this guy's great in pass coverage. No, he's terrible. He just somehow lucked in the 5 interceptions in 1 year. So, yeah, D- for me. He should not be back here next year by any means. Hopefully they find someone better, whether it's Isaiah Simmons or Corey Littleton, someone, hopefully we find someone better than him. I feel like it's not too hard. David Mayo, I'll give a C+. We know he's great in the run game, but covering tight ends and covering receivers in general wasn't that great. So, I mean, I'll give him a C+. He was great in one aspect and not so good in the other, so a C+ I feel is fair. Deion Buchanan, I also give a C+. He showed up in a positive way a few times during the season. They signed him, I think, before the Detroit game, which was like week 10, 11-ish. No, before that, probably like week 8. I don't know, whatever it was. But still, he was here for like half the year. I think he had some bright moments, but some moments where he missed tackles and stuff like that as well. Some missed coverages and stuff like that. Ryan Conley only started 3 games. I think he played like 3.5 games, and he looked really good in those games. He looked like a guy that was always in the right spot at the right time. He was making tackles. I think had a couple interceptions as well. So I give him a B+. I'm not sold on him being the long-term answer at inside linebacker, but you definitely have to be encouraged by what you saw from him. So hopefully he comes back next year healthy from the injury and continues to build off what he did last year. Cornerback, I know we forgot about this guy, but Janoris Jenkins, he was here most of the year. I give him a B-. I always said outside of that Tampa Bay game against Mike Evans, he had a pretty nice year, honestly. I think he had like 1.5 bad games. He had like a iffy game at one point, the really bad game in Tampa, but the rest of the year I think he was pretty solid, so I'll give him a B-. DeAndre Baker, a C+. The last month of the season definitely raised his grade. He was not so great the first couple months of the year, but you could tell he got better as the year went on. I'm still hoping that he's still a lockdown corner in the future. He definitely has the talent for it. We'll see if he gets it in here. I feel like that's the main problem for him, and understanding the playbook was definitely an issue for him as well, so hopefully he gets better next year. Sam Beal, didn't see much of him. I think it was 5 or 6 games. Well, I'll give him a B- because we really didn't see anything bad with Sam Beal. Of course, he had a couple bad plays in there, but for the most part, he wasn't getting torched like Corey Ballantyne or Grant Haley, guys who were up next on the list. He wasn't that bad, so I'll give Sam Beal a decent grade, a B- for him. Corey Ballantyne, I'll give a D. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. This guy was shot on draft night and kind of had a very weird training camp and stuff, but he wasn't that great, honestly. I mean, the Bears game, they were exploiting him. The game against, was it the Dolphins game? I don't know. I think someone else went after him a bunch of times and it worked out well. So he wasn't great in the slot. I think as his future in the NFL, he can be a depth corner on the outside. I don't think he's a slot corner. I don't think he's made for that. So we'll see if they put him on the outside next year as a backup. I think he has a future in this league, but I don't know about starting slot corner. They just had him in the wrong spot. Grant Haley, they tried him the first half of the year as a slot corner, had some bright moments last year, but this year was a colossal failure, so I give him a D. Antonio Hamilton started in week 1. That was bad. He started today in week 17. Had some bad moments, so I'll give him a D, but he also had some really nice moments on special teams as well, so I mean, maybe that bumped his grade up a little bit. For safeties, Jabril Peppers, I give a B. He was part of the Odell trade, and he had, the first couple weeks of the year, I was like, this guy is not Landon Collins. He's not on that level. Then he had that pick 6 against Haskins against Washington week 3 or 4, and he got better. So, I mean, I think ever since that moment, I guess his confidence went up and felt he belonged here and stuff like that. But I think he's a guy who could be here for a long time, and hopefully he keeps improving. I hope he avoids the injuries, because the last 3 years, the best Giants safeties ended the season on IR. It's Landon Collins twice in a row, then this year Jabril Peppers. So hopefully he can stay healthy and play all 16 next year. Antoine Bethea, I give a D. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Antoine Bethea. I mean, this was a signing that was just had bad news written all over it. I mean, 35 years old. I mean, this is a problem I have with Dave Gettleman once again. He literally said at one of his press conferences, I don't take age into consideration when signing players. I mean, that was ridiculous in my mind. You have to take age into consideration. He tried signing William Gay, the old Steelers cornerback, when he was like 35 his first year as GM here. Dude didn't make the team. So maybe in the future, Gettleman should consider age when signing players. Julian Love, a B+. I thought that was a nice pick. I mean, that was a guy I loved in college, and even before we drafted him, I said, in one of my videos pre-draft, I was like, I'm a big fan of this Julian Love guy from Notre Dame. We drafted him in the 4th round, I think pick 108. I wanted Chauncey Gardner-Johnson more. He's had a great year for the Saints, but we couldn't get him. I think we were 3 picks late on him, so it is what it is. But Julian Love looks like a solid player. Hopefully he's starting for us next year. Not sure where. That's the big question. Maybe he's a slot corner next year. He played slot corner today. I think he had a pretty decent game, and we'll see what happens with the new defensive coordinator next year, in all likelihood. Michael Thomas, a B-. He made some really nice plays this year once again. He had some plays where he wasn't great. I think back to that week 1 play with Jason Witten where he fell for the play action and it was a touchdown. But for the most part, I mean, as a 4th-string safety, the guy had a great year. So hopefully he's back next year. I think he's a free agent as well. Here's the other A+ for punter, Riley Dixon. I don't have his numbers off the top of my head. I don't know what his net yardage was, but he was great this year. I mean, just watching every punt punt. I think he was phenomenal. Had a punt that was down at the 1 today, but unfortunately it was called back. But he had a couple of those this year. I think he was fantastic. There were some questions before the season started if he would be the right guy for the job, because he wasn't that great last year as a punter, but he definitely improved this year. And that's a trade by Gettleman I definitely approve. I think he traded a 7th rounder to Denver to get to get Riley Dixon. So that was a good move by him. And for kicker, Aldrick Rosas, unfortunately, I could give him a C. I don't know what his field goal percentage was off the top of my head once again, but had some bad misses this year. I was thinking back to the Arizona game. He had a key miss. Had a 50-something yard miss, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, yeah, the guys had definitely some misses this year, and it's been unfortunate, but I think it's just a mental thing with him. I mean, the guy can't be an all-pro one year and only miss one field goal over a whole season and then be complete trash the next year. I feel like once he has a whole off season, gets his mechanics right, gets his confidence back, I think he'll be fine next year, but we'll see. I'm sure the Giants will bring in some competition for him. Maybe they draft a kicker as well, so we'll see what they do with him, but I'll give Rosas a C for the year. I didn't write this one down, but on the season, I'll give the Giants a D plus maybe. I don't know. It was a rough season. I mean, this team tied the franchise record for most losses in a row with 10, I think it was, 9 or 10. So it was a rough year. So, I mean, hopefully they're better next year. It can't get much worse. I know I say that now, but it could get worse, I guess. We'll see what they do with the general manager position, the head coaching position. I'm sure I'll have videos in the future, in the coming days, hopefully, about that. I hope we have an answer soon, but hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next time.